Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. My name is George Bledsoe, and I am honored to serve as your worship associate today and to welcome you fully into this space. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies here. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit here. We welcome all you are bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome all of you. We extend a special welcome to each guest amongst us. We invite our guests to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plate later in the service. Guests may also pick up a welcome packet at the back of the sanctuary where folks will also find hearing assist devices and Braille hymnals. A fragrance-free area is located on the front right side in the first few pews. If you are a visiting family, including children or youth, after the time for all ages noted in your order of service, please join the children's recessional and head across the hall to the common room. There you will be greeted by someone who will orient you to religious education. Immediately following this service, everyone is invited for coffee and conversation in the common room. My name is George, and you can come talk to me at the guest table. As a way to engage at First Church, I invite you to explore the announcements insert for the numerous opportunities available here. In particular, let me draw your attention to a few. Today in our Sunday morning forum, we have Wisconsin Black Historical Society Museum, presented by Claiborne Benson III, Executive Director and Founder. Learn about the only institution in the state dedicated to preserving Wisconsin's African American history. Join us at 10:10 a.m. in Max Auto Hall, second floor. Last chance to register for Spiritual Practices Exploration, which meets on first Monday, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., beginning October the 7th. For more information and to register, visit the religious education table during coffee hour or register on our church website. Interested in companionship on the grief journey? Consider joining our grief support group. Please send your reflection questions by October the 9th. Pick up a flyer for more information at the RE table. Join us for the Women's Autumn Luncheon on Saturday, October the 26th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be live music and Crowning the Crones, an empowerment event. Only $3.50. Register today at the Women's Spirit table or contact Janet Nordstrom. Also today from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. in the Max Auto Hall, join our Join in Singing workshop. A casual atmosphere, low on judgment, high on enjoyment. Sarah will lead the singing of songs by call and response. No auditions required. Experience the joy of singing together. Please find details on these and more events in the announcements insert. Finally, please silence any electronic devices for the remainder of the service. Once again, I welcome you to First Church by inviting you to join me in the unison reading of our mission, which is printed in our order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to see you here on this beautiful day. These opening words are by Jan Richardson. You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that allowed you to enter entirely. Tentative steps became settling in. You began to breathe again. You learned to sing. But the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone, will not let you linger. This blessing will ask you to leave, not because it has tired of you, but because it desires you to become the sanctuary that you have found. We are so blessed to have Sarah Thompson with us today. Welcome. It's been a big weekend of singing. Yes, and we're going to sing more. So there's a beautiful song she wrote called By Breath, and the lyrics are in your order of service. So I'll have you lead us.
And if Good morning. The story I have for you today is called Stand Tall, Molly Lou Mellon. Molly Lou Mellon stood just taller than her dog, and she was the shortest girl in first grade. But she didn't mind. Her grandma told her, "Walk as proudly as you can, and the world will look up to you." And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon had buck teeth that stuck so far out, she could stack pennies on them. But she didn't mind. Her grandma said, "Smile big, and the world will smile right along with you." And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon had a voice that sounded like a bullfrog being squeezed by a boa constrictor. She didn't mind. Her grandma told her, "Sing out clear and strong, and the world will cry tears of joy." And so she did. Molly Lou Mellon often fumble-fingered, she was, but she didn't mind. Her grandma told her, "Believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you too." And so she did. Then Molly Lou Mellon moved to a new town, and she had to say goodbye to her grandma and to all of her friends and start in a new school. Now, on the first day of school, Ronald Durkin called her Shrimpo in gym class. And when the game started, Molly Lou Mellon caught the football, ran under the legs of Ronald Durkin, and scored a touchdown. All the children thought, "Wow, she's good." And Ronald Durkin felt a little foolish. On the second day of school, Ronald Durkin called her Bucktooth Beaver. Molly Lou, she took out her pennies and she started to stack them on her teeth. And she smiled as big as the day, and all the children smiled with glee, and Ronald Durkin, he felt a little foolish. Now, on the third day of school, Ronald Durkin said, "You sound like a sick duck. Honk, honk." Molly Lou Mellon, she sang out a quack, so clear and strong that it made Ronald Durkin somersault backwards, hit his head, and have to go to the nurse's office. All the children cried with joy to be free of Ronald Durkin for a while, and Ronald Durkin felt a little foolish. On the fourth day of school, Ronald Durkin said that she made her snowflakes all wrong, but then Molly Lou Mellon opened up her paper and revealed the most beautiful snowflake ever. And all the children oohed and awed, even Ronald Durkin. On the fifth day of school, Ronald Durkin brought Molly Lou Mellon a stacking penny for her teeth, and he smiled at her. And that night, Molly Lou Mellon took out a pencil and a paper, and she wrote a letter to her grandma. "Dear Grandma, I wanted to tell you that everything you told me was exactly right. Love, Molly Lou Mellon." Please rise in body and spirit to sing our next hymn. It's 107 in your teal hymnal. And religious education teachers, assistants, and children will leave after the first verse, following me out the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. Are we awake now? Feeling that spirit of life moving through our veins? All right. I'll take that good energy into your breath, into this time of centering and meditation. Find your feet on the floor. Find your spine floating up and your breath floating down deep into your belly. Allow the air to go in and out of your lungs at its own pace. This spoken meditation is called Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Today I would like to do a reading. The name of it is Listening for Our Song. It's by David S. Blanchard. On sabbatical in East Africa, I heard a story of a people who believe that we are each created with our own song. Their tradition as a community is to honor that song by singing it as welcome when a child is born, as comfort when the child is ill, in celebration when the child marries, and in affirmation and love when death comes. Most of us were not welcome into the world in that way. Few of us seem to know our song. It takes a while for many of us to figure out which is our song and which is the song that others would like us to sing. Some of us are slow learners. I heard my song not necessarily from doing extraordinary things in exotic places, but also from doing some pretty ordinary things in some routine places. For every phrase I heard climbing Kilimanjaro, I learned another in a chair in a therapist's office. For every measure I heard in the silence of a retreat, I heard another laughing with my girls. For every note I heard in the wind on the beach at Lamu, I gleaned from spending time with a dying friend as her children sang her song back to her. What came to astound me was not that the song appeared, but that it was always there. I figured that the only way I could have known it for my own was if I had heard it before memory went to work making sense and order out of the mystery of our beginning. Our songs sing back to us something of our essence, something of our truth, something of our uniqueness. When our songs are sung back to us, it is not about approval, but about recognizing our being and our belonging in the human family. It is good to know our songs by heart for those lonely times when the world is not singing them back to us. That's usually a good time to start humming to yourself that song that is most your own. They can be heard as songs of love or of longing, songs of encouragement or of comfort, songs of struggle or of security. But most of all, they are the songs of life, giving testimony to what has been, giving praise for all we're given, giving hope for all we strive for, giving voice to the great mystery that carries each of us in and out of this world.
We usually think of belonging in terms of the quest to find a place and a people where we feel at home, where we fit in, where something hard and protected in us can finally soften and relax. And this arrival at belonging is real. That moment of transformation, when our protective layer softens, is a sacred moment. It can lead to all kinds of things. The satiation of our hunger for welcome, beginning to breathe again, finding our song, settling in, risking more. We usually think of belonging as a choice and a one-time event. But what if it's a process instead? How would our relationships and community change if we approach belonging as a process of becoming, being, and giving belonging to one another? In Michelle Obama's autobiography, Becoming, she wrote, "For me, becoming isn't about arriving somewhere or achieving a certain aim. I see it instead as forward motion, a means of evolving, a way to reach continuously toward a better self. The journey doesn't end. I became a mother, but I still have a lot to learn from and give to my children. I became a wife, but I continue to adapt to and be humbled by what it truly means to love and make a life with another person. I have become, by certain measures, a person of power, and yet there are moments still when I feel insecure or unheard. It's all a process," she wrote, "steps along a path. Becoming requires equal parts patience and rigor. Becoming is never giving up on the idea that there's more growing to be done. I'm an ordinary person who found herself on an extraordinary journey. In sharing my story, I hope to create space for other stories and other voices to widen the pathway for who belongs and why." Michelle Obama probably doesn't know about First Unitarian Society Milwaukee's End Number 8. Even though I think she speaks to it. End Number 8, in our larger vision for who we want to be as a community, states, "We will create accessible, courageous, and innovative welcome to people who might find a sense of belonging and a spiritual home with us." Perhaps the reason that you are here is because you experienced the kind of welcome that led to a sense of belonging. So you came back. You showed both patience and rigor in your effort to make new connections here, take risks by showing up, reaching out, and reaching in. And hopefully congregation members and staff met you in that space. Courage meeting courage and leading to a space for more stories and more voices. Access to a place and a people in which to heal and become whole. The survey our Board of Trustees conducted last year to gather baseline data on our ends showed that end number 8 has the biggest gap between how important we think it is and how well we think we are doing it. A gap between the ideal and the real. This month's theme of belonging can help us reflect on this piece of our vision and the underlying dynamics. Belonging can be complicated. Author and consultant Peter Block wrote in his book, Community, The Structure of Belonging. Community is about the experience of belonging. The word belong has two meanings. First and foremost, to belong is to be related to, and a part of something. It is membership, the experience of being at home in the broadest sense of the phrase. It is the opposite of thinking that wherever I am, I would be better off somewhere else, or that I am still forever wandering, looking for that place where I belong. The opposite of belonging is to feel isolated, always on the margin, an outsider. The second meaning of the word belong has to do with being an owner. Something belongs to me. To belong to a community is to act as a creator and co-owner of that community. What I consider mine, I will build and nurture. Belonging can also be thought of as a longing to be. Being is our capacity to find deeper purpose in all that we do. It is the capacity to be present and to discover our authenticity and our whole selves. This is often thought of as an individual capacity, but it is also a community capacity. Community is the container within which our longing to be is fulfilled. Block asserts that communities of people can't rely on chance or simply depend on the welcoming nature of extroverts to create belonging. He writes, "To belong is to act as an investor, an owner, a creator of this place. To feel a sense of belonging is important because it will lead us from conversations about safety and comfort to other conversations." I'm not sure exactly what Block had in mind when he wrote those words 10 years ago, but there are currents of need in our Unitarian Universalist movement these days that involve moving from conversations about safety and comfort to other conversations. Conversations about de-centering whiteness to make room for people of color's voices and stories. Conversations about the complexity of gender identity and how we might make room in our language and thus in our community for folks that are marginalized and harassed because of their gender. These conversations are not easy. They involve both patience and rigor. They involve both emotional and intellectual risk-taking. Writer, professor, and cultural critic Bell Hooks writes in her book, Belonging, A Culture of Place, about the intersections of race, gender, and capitalism that affect her personal story. She wrote, "All my life, I have searched for a place of belonging, a place that would become home. Growing up in a small Kentucky town, I knew in early childhood what home was, what it felt like. Home was a safe place, the place where one could count on not being hurt. It was the place where wounds were attended to. Home was the place where the me of me mattered. Home was the place I longed for, but it was not where I lived. My first remembered family dwelling, a cinder block house with concrete floors on a hill, stood as though naked against the lush backdrop of dense natural landscape, trees, honeysuckle vines, blackberry bushes, and wild strawberries. When life inside the concrete house was painful, unbearable, there was always the outside. There was always a place for me in nature. Roaming those Kentucky hills, I lived in paradise. I was certain that I belonged, confident of my place and purpose. In that culture of belonging, I learned the importance of divine providence. Walking behind Daddy Jerry, my father's father, farmer and sharecropper, I was taught that man could only do so much. that man could not make the crops grow or the rain fall. I learned that humankind were special in our differences from other animals, but that we were governed by higher powers. Daddy Jerry would often say, as long as a man knows his place in nature, everything will be right. But when he forgets and thinks he is God, trouble comes. This profound belief in divine order allowed Daddy Jerry to experience wholeness and integrity despite the forces of white supremacist exploitation and oppression surrounding him. His love of the soil, the solace he found in nature, enabled him to have an open mind and an uplifted heart. Despite the sufferings he experienced living in the world of Jim Crow, he found a culture of belonging in the natural world, with the earth as his witness. The values of belonging imprinted on my consciousness in early childhood, as a child of nature, were in conflict with the values and beliefs that prevailed inside our patriarchal domestic household. When our family moved from the hills, from the country, into town, it was a shift brought about by our mother's desire to have us be more civilized. But for me, this move was traumatic. In the world of the town, I was faced with the politics of race, class, and gender. From roaming hills and feeling free, I learned in the world of the city that to be safe as a girl, especially as a black girl, it was better to be still, enclosed, confined. I learned that to be safe within the space of blackness, one had to keep within specific boundaries, not to cross the tracks separating black from white. I learned that wearing homemade clothes and hand-me-downs were marks of shame. Gone was my confidence that I belonged in the world. In a world where I did not belong, I struggled to find strategies for survival. In the world of dominator culture, both within our household and beyond, I found a place of refuge in books, ways of perceiving the world, which expanded my consciousness and left me wanting more from life than I believed was possible in Kentucky. In Bell Hook's story, I hear complexity in the process of finding belonging. I hear that it is not solely up to the individual to make it happen. I hear that her grandfather gave her belonging, nature gave her belonging, books gave her belonging. It makes me wonder who and what gave me belonging over the years. But more than that, it makes me wonder how we give belonging in this community to each other and those we have yet to meet. Because it's not solely up to the individual who is seeking belonging to find it. Our membership development coordinator, Lynn Jacoby, and our membership team have imagined a more structured way to give belonging to each other through making intentional connections. They invite you to consider becoming a mentor, a new member mentor, so that new members don't get lost in our large congregation. A mentor would connect with a brand new member 3 times over the first 4 months after they join. The goal is to get to know them. Help them make the particular connections here that make this large church feel like home. Why would you want to be a mentor? Because becoming for others what we have found for ourselves is an integral part of our own belonging. Someone from our membership team said, "You want to do it because helping someone feel they belong helps you feel like you belong. To give belonging to each other, we might have to give up something. Hopefully, we don't have to give up the ground of our identity, but we might have to give up a small piece of who we are in order to become more of who we are called to be as a community. I may have to give up a piece of being an introvert in order to reach out to you. I may have to park my assumption that I know what you need. When we first meet each other, we don't know what each other's closely held and necessary strategies of survival are. We can't guess how tightly woven into our identities those strategies of survival live in us. And yet, when we seek belonging in community, we are motivated by more than survival. We're motivated by the desire to thrive. This poem by Mary Oliver speaks to the process of giving. I gave, she wrote, I gave to a friend I care for deeply, something that I loved. It was only a small, extremely shapely bone that came from the ear of a whale. It hurt a little to give it away. The next morning, I went out as usual at sunrise, and there in the harbor was a swan. I don't know what he or she was doing there, but the beauty of it was gift. Do you see what I mean? You give, and you are given. In an essay called An Economy of Gratitude, Norman Wirzba wrote, in the practical, mundane, sustained commitment to place and community, the marks of gratitude come more clearly into focus. He defines those marks as affection, attention, delight, kindness, praise, conviviality, and repentance. It's interesting that he lists repentance as a mark of gratitude. The fact is that in community we sometimes hurt each other. Even with the best of intentions, sometimes the impact of our words and actions cause harm. Sometimes our inaction or silence causes harm. Admitting harm done and seeking forgiveness is a way of turning toward each other again, moved by gratitude for relationship and a mutual commitment to belonging. It's not easy. Repentance and repair are hard work. When things get hard in our faith community, perhaps we're not chosen for a leadership position, or we suffer microaggressions, or we feel a loss of identity when asked to participate in culture change, such as decentering whiteness, or perhaps naming our pronouns. This loss is real. When things get hard, we might wonder, whose faith is this? How can I keep giving belonging to people when I sense my own belonging threatened or slipping away? Perhaps Michelle Obama's words from her book, Becoming, have an answer. She wrote, I've been lucky enough to get to walk into stone castles, urban classrooms, and Iowa kitchens, just trying to be myself, just trying to connect. For every door that's been opened to me, I've tried to open my door to others. And here's what I have to say, finally. Let's invite each other in. Maybe then we can begin to fear less, to make fewer wrong assumptions, to let go of the biases and stereotypes that unnecessarily divide us. Maybe we can better embrace the ways that we are the same. It's not about being perfect. It's not about where you get yourself in the end. There's power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice. And there's grace in being willing to know and hear others. This, for me, is how we become.
Every week, we have an opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledged cash in our offering plate with the community organization. In this way, we commit our resources in line with our belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. This month, we share 50% of all non-pledged cash in our offering plate with Trickle B Cafe, which provides fresh, healthy, locally grown food to anyone, regardless of ability to pay, thereby feeding the immediate need of hunger. To contribute, put cash or checks made out to Trickle B Cafe.
Please rise and body your spirit for the responsive reading by Joy Harjo, printed in your order of service. I'll begin. The stuff I need for singing by whatever means is garnered from every thought, every heart that ever pounded the earth.
The shapes of mountains, cities, a whistle beat of grass, or a human bent with loss, will revise the pattern of the story, the song.
I take it from there, play through the heartbreak of the tenderness of being.
Until I hit the sky, the earth, the song, and the singer.
Sarah will lead us in our closing song, and the lyrics are in your program.